Similar to the unconvertible joints, the thrusts on the zygapophyseal joints in the neck is superior and inferior. The difference between the two being 90 degrees. It's a thrust plane is down the side of the neck for the unconvertible joint and up and down the back of the neck for the facet joint. Otherwise, they are both superior and inferior. Now, these are approximations, of course. The unconvertible joints have varying degrees of obliquity. So at the top, they start up close to vertical, and as they go further down, they become like this until they disappear. The facet joints have less variety than that. But on each case, because you're manipulating the segment, the thrust is always superior and inferior. So, much simpler than the U-joints. You simply test the superior and inferior glide of the zygapophyseal joint to determine which needs to be treated.
Alrighty, so what we're going to do is extend the right facet. Soft part of the hand, the soft spot, goes on the articular process, superior articular process segment you're going to hit. Lift into extension, translate it, take up the down slack and thrust downwards. This is stabilizing through the head. So again, up, translate across, take up the down slack, thrust down. I can stabilize the segment below rather than through the head. So now the soft spot goes on the transverse process of the lower vertebra. Lift, translate, and thrust down. Lift and thrust. Okay, we're going to do flexion on the right side by pushing the inferior vertebra inferiorly. So we'll flex the neck up. This one will translate. So soft spot on the transverse process, translate across to the right. Soft spot goes on the inferior articular process on the right side, and we thrust. So essentially to stay on the bone well, you squeeze both hands together. There's your translation. Take up the down slack and thrust down the neck. Lift, translate, and thrust. Or maybe a primary technique for flexion. There'll be flexion on the left side. And it's going to look like traction, but it's an asymmetrical traction. So move across to me. You need the patient close. We'll flex the spine. I'm going to side bend away from me, and I'm going to pretend, and it is only a pretense, that I can get the soft spot in between the transverse processes of the segment that I'm manipulating. So if I'm manipulating C3-4, this will try and slide into C3-4, and the attempt at doing that will give you good contact on the bone. So this comes in this way, and then I'm going to bring the head back, and as I bring the head back, I'm going to bring my arm across the body that way, and that movement will push up on the superior transverse process, side bending it to the right. So it's basically this and that and there. So you can use your body to lunge, or you can simply thrust with your hand. We can hit the translation rather than worrying about a particular joint. We can basically hit the translation. Let's assume we've lost left translation. We'll put them into flexion or extension, whichever one is appropriate. So if they've lost extension and left translation, we'll lift the superior vertebra into extension, translate it across while stabilizing the inferior one there, and then push across the neck against the worst neck fin. So it's basically lift into extension, translate.
The next clip is of translational manipulations. Now, when you side bend to the right, the vertebra translates to the left. So it means that the right U-joint goes up, the left U-joint goes down, and the right facet goes down, and the left one goes up. It means that all of those joints are involved in translation. If any of them cannot move, then you cannot get translation. So by manipulating translation, you can manipulate any of these joints. The difference between the unconvertible joint manipulation for translation and the U-joint manipulation is that the flexion extension must be done in flexion or extension, depending on which one is missing. So, for example, I can translate to the right by extending the neck and then applying a left thrust or a right thrust across the neck, and that will get the facet or the U-joint that's involved in movement. So the difference between them is you do it flexion extension for the facet, and you can do it in neutral or extension or flexion for the U-joint, with a proviso that you must have the bad end feel when you do the translation. So this is the problem with translation. It's very easy to lose that end feel, and when you thrust, nothing happens. As I said, in the unconvertible joint, this is not a good tech for me. I don't do well at it. But again, that's not to reject my inadequacies on you. You may like it. It's a very simple one to understand. I find it less easy to do.